Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound Podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And UFC Perth is here. Maddalena taking on Prates in the main event. And you know what we're here to do. Break the whole thing down, starting off in the early prelims, heading to the main event. Carlos's breakdowns are in. And let's dive right in to the early prelims. And kicking things off in UFC Perth early prelim opener, we've got Wes Schultz taking on Ben Johnston. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Wes Schultz, people who follow Dog of the Week will remember Wes Schultz didn't get it done against Damian Pinnis as our Dog of the Week. And he's going to have a guy here that's going to want to implement some grappling in Ben Johnston. Ben Johnston, a guy that, trains over at City Kickboxing. He does have decent kickboxing, but 4 of his 5 victories are coming via way of submission. He has deadly rear naked chokes. He will look to take the back at every opportunity that he gets. And if you go back and look at tape on Ben Johnston, he did recently win the belt over in his regional scene promotion here in Australia, but his level of competition is very poor. He is the better striker in this matchup, and I will say if he keeps this one on the feet, I am a little bit worried for Wes Schultz because we just saw him come off that knockout loss. I do think that Damian Pinnis carries a lot of power, and he did get chin-checked in that one and knocked out, but I would like to have seen Wes Schultz mix in some grappling in that one, shooting for takedowns. But in this particular matchup, Ben Johnston's takedown defense is poor for me. You go and look at the tape, he was getting taken down in that regional fight multiple times. He was able to get back to his feet, but I think that the lack of wrestling from his opponent is not that on the level of Wes Schultz. Wes Schultz, former Division III wrestler, a guy that can definitely get fights to the ground. We saw him get that Suluev stretch in his Dana White's Contender Series performance, and he's a guy that I think can come in here and play spoiler as an underdog. He's 6 years younger. He's going to be better in the grappling department. I think that, when you look at Ben Johnston, even though he is getting these submission victories, it's more of opportunistic submissions more than him being able to dictate where the fight takes place. Guys are taking him down and he's getting in scrambles and he's able to be able to take the back. And I think here that Wes Schultz, once he gets him down, he's going to be the one controlling this fight. He's going to be the one implementing his ground and pound. He's going to be the one dictating on the ground where this fight is going to take place. And I think once that happens, he's in Wes Schultz's world. And I think that he can get the submission victory here, or at least win enough rounds to be able to win on the judges' scorecards here and play spoiler. On the feet, I do think that Ben Johnston has nice kicks. He is the crisper striker. He has that very sort of city kickboxing traditional style in his stand-up. And, city kickboxing is known for having good takedown defense, but I do not see that here in Johnston. He got took down multiple times in the fight that I saw. And I think if that happens and we see rinse and repeat in that fight, in this fight, I think Wes Schultz is going to be able to pull off the victory here. So give me Wes Schultz to play spoiler in this opening bout at UFC Perth. Let's see if Carlos has got Ben Johnston or Wes Schultz in his breakdown.
This one, I'm going to go with Ben Johnston to get it done. I think that Johnston looks to be the more technical of the two on the feet. He will look to be the aggressor out of the two in the exchanges, and I feel that he's probably got the heavier shots out of the two. But most of all, I feel that he's the more accurate when it comes to his striking. He does finish a lot of his combinations with attacks to the lead leg. He'll also start them just with one shot at a time, just attacking the lead leg. So that's something that Schultz is going to have to be, pretty cautious about. And both are tall, long fighters, but they can grapple. And Schultz will need to use his wrestling, however he can to get Johnston down and force him to work, force him to get a little fatigued, or, start to feel a little tired or something. And, I just don't know if Wes gets him down, what kind of ground game does Johnston have if he's on the bottom? He's also going up against guys that where he ended up on the bottom, he was able to still work and get to better positions. But against somebody like Schultz, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Schultz has taken down big guys before, and he has controlled them, and I don't know if Johnston has that type of grappling to be able to sweep and get to a better position, but I do know that he's very competent on the ground and he's got some submission victories, and he can be a problem on the ground for Schultz as well. And if he ends up in top position, he loves to throw the elbows, the step in elbows, and he likes to wing elbows as hooks. When he's inside and he's in close, he's going to do the same thing on the ground. He's going to start landing some bombs with those elbows, and he's going to start ripping to the body. That's what he does with his ground and pound, and try to soften you up for submission. So I do think he's the more effective fighter of the two. I don't think Schultz is I don't think he's a bum. I think he's a solid fighter. I just think that Johnston's just a little sharper, a little cleaner in his movement, a little cleaner in his striking, and I think he's probably going to be the stronger of the two. Now Wes does have wrestling, but I do think Johnston probably does have the ability to stop some of his takedowns, and if he can do that and get the separation, I think he can beat up Wes Schultz on the feet a little bit. Wes is durable. He's a tough guy. He just got a KO loss to, I think it was Damian Pinas, but, Pinas is supposed to be a power puncher, so you're not supposed to allow yourself to get hit clean like that. And I think if Johnston does hit him like that, he's not going to put him out with one shot, but I think, over time he's going to chip away at him and chip away and start to slowly fatigue him. So I'm going to take Ben Johnston to get this one done.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Kody Steele taking on Dom Mayor Fan. And I got to say, I'm going to go with Steele in this one, but I'm not super confident, and I'll explain why. Kody Steele is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He took silver medals in the Open Championships. He's the 2019 Combat Jiu-Jitsu World Champion. Very decorated on the ground. Great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, no doubt about it. Dom Mayor Fan is a guy that wants to be able to take you to the ground, rinse and repeat. As he takes you down, he's going to be stomping on your feet, landing elbows, uppercuts to the body. He's just going to make fights very gritty and very dirty, but he wants to be able to get the fight to the ground. He can push a real heavy pace for the course of 3 rounds, something I don't think that Steele can actually do. I don't think that Steele has an ability to be able to push hard for 3 straight rounds. He will slow down as fights go on. I don't think that he can have the output that Fan can have. My concern here, and the reason I'm going to pick Kody Steele, is that obviously Fan is going to look to take the fight to the ground with heavy wrestling, heavy top pressure. But I do think that Kody Steele is going to be able to find the submission here. Fan, in his 2 losses, has got submitted from Quillan Salkilld, who we'll see in the co-main event against Beneil Dariush. If Quillan Salkilld can submit you, I definitely think the highly decorated black belt in Kody Steele is going to be able to find a submission victory here. My real concern here is it's just going to play out in the fashion of, if Dom Mayor Fan can defend the takedowns, he's going to make Steele get tired having to try and defend the takedowns. He's going to rinse and repeat takedowns whilst kind of wearing on the gas tank, dragging him to the ground, beating him up to the body. And then ultimately, I just could see Steele just getting tired and not being able to kind of push or at least keep that same pace that Dom Mayor Fan can. On the other hand, I could see Fan, just kind of rinsing and repeating the takedowns, giving Kody Steele the opportunity to find a submission. And that's what has me a little bit concerned in this one. I think it's very 50-50. I'm going to go with Kody Steele because I do think on the feet, he is the much crisper boxer, the better striker, and I do think he carries a lot of power in the hands. We've seen him finish one of his most recent performances with a nice liver shot to the body. I think taxing the body of Fan is going to be able to slow him down and kind of ward off some of that gas tank later on in the fight. But give me Kody Steele here in a slight lean. Let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to take Kody Steele to get it done. I feel Steele is the more credentialed grappler with championships in the EBI World Combat Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, and I feel that he's a little bit more skilled, a little bit more technical on the ground as well, but that's not to say that Fan isn't. What he does that causes problems for people is he can it's not even a scramble. He just contorts his body and gets to a better position, and he can be on the bottom and then somehow just end up on top in your guard because he just torques his body, whether he's got strong hips, strong core. He's just able to reverse position sometimes, and it's not the most technical thing. It's just something that he does, and he's been doing his entire career. So that's something that Kody Steele's going to have to watch out for and not end up on the bottom and have Fan on top raining down elbows and looking for submissions. But I do feel that Steele is the better striker. I feel if he wanted to keep this on the feet, I think he's a little bit more technical. I think his technique on the strikes are a little bit better. I think his footwork's better. I think that Fan, he's just he's a little loose with his strike, and he doesn't put enough behind it. He's not trying to get you out there with one shot, but he will work you in the clinch once he gets you there, and he's going to have to watch out for the knees in the clinch to the body, elbows to the head, and I do feel that Kody Steele has that little extra where that fight against Rong Zhu showed that he was able to, come fight through adversity. Now, he didn't get the win in that one, but, he was hurt several times in that, and he hurt Rong Zhu again numerous times in that fight too. So it was a back and forth, and he was able to go the distance, and that just tells me that he's willing to be a dog in there. And besides being well-rounded, I think that he's also on the upside. He's learning more. He's getting better. And I just feel that technically standing or on the ground, I feel he can best Fan to get this one done.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Themba Gorimbo taking on Jonathan Micallef. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button and give me Jonathan Micallef in this style matchup here. I do not trust Gorimbo. I think he lacks a little bit of aggression in his fights, and I think he relies too much on his grappling. I think his striking is about average. And in this style matchup, I think Jonathan Micallef can really take advantage and dictate where he wants this fight to take place. You go back and look at Micallef's previous fight against Oban Elliott, the Welsh gangster. He came out a little bit flat-footed, a little bit slow in that one. I think Oban Elliott, really took it to him early in round one, and he struggled with the boxing and the heavy aggression of Oban Elliott. And the thing with that fight, what that really told me was that he's not going to have a whole lot of trouble here against Themba Gorimbo. Gorimbo is not necessarily known for the hands. He's more known for the wrestling and the takedowns and the jiu-jitsu. And obviously being able to push a respectable pace. His hands and his boxing are not where he shines. And obviously Micallef has excellent takedown defense. He's able to defend the takedowns of Oban Elliott. He's able to get back to his feet very early in that first round. He just needs to be on his P's and Q's in this matchup. And I actually think Oban Elliott is actually a tougher opponent for him than Themba Gorimbo. Micallef has decent kicks. He does lack in the boxing in terms of setting up his hands at times, and he does kind of wing a little bit wild. But in that second round, we saw that once he wanted to get to his own grappling, he was able to take the fight to the ground. He was able to take the back and ultimately find the rear naked choke in round two. And as I said, he came out a little bit, lackluster in that one. And Themba Gorimbo is not a guy that comes out very aggressive. He doesn't push a crazy pace. And I think, Themba is going to look for takedowns, and I think Micallef knows that. So he just has to defend the takedowns, keep it on the feet. He has excellent kicks that he can kind of keep Themba guessing with, light up the body, light up the legs. And ultimately here, he should have success in the striking. He should put up a ton of volume here. I think once he finds the mark with a couple of shots and gets his reads on the feet, he'll definitely be able to land on Themba Gorimbo. He's 8 years younger as well. Very similar in height and reach, but I think that sort of youthful exuberance in this fight here should shine through. I think Gorimbo is very one-dimensional in terms of the wrestling, and we just saw, in his previous fight, when he took on
one eternity later,
Jeremiah Wells, that's who I was trying to think of. Jeremiah Wells came out and he was able to implement his own grappling on Themba Gorimbo. And I think that he's very reliant upon that. And I obviously think with the heavy wrestling pace that he's going to struggle. He's going to get tired. And I think Micallef has a much better gas tank here, much improved takedown defense. And also, I think he's the better striker here. So give me Jonathan Micallef here to get this one done. I think he should be able to win this one by unanimous decision, winning enough rounds with the damage in the striking. And I think that Themba's going to struggle to dictate this fight with his wrestling. So give me Jonathan Micallef here to get this one done at UFC Perth. And let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, I'm going to take Micallef to get this one done. I think he's very technical, and he's a thinker in the cage, willing to use the techniques to get it done. Micallef rips his opponents to the body with that heavy leg kick, gets his opponents thinking defensively, forcing them to hesitate offensively, and pretty much just try not to get hurt when they're with him. Somebody like Gorimbo, I think he's a bit sloppy when he's striking. His footwork looks a little sloppy, like he's clumsy in the cage. He may not be fatigued, he may not be tired, but for some reason it just looks like he's not stable. He doesn't have good wrestling to get this to the mat because he can grapple, but he just looks like he uses a lot of strength to get you down and not so much technique. And I think Micallef is more, I don't want to say he's on the level of Vicente Luque, because I think that Micallef has the ability to surpass that, but I feel that right now he's on kind of a level like Vicente Luque, and I think he can get a quick finish on Gorimbo just like he did. The only issue is that Micallef, he's not going to try to rush to hurt you. He'll take his time. He'll pick his spots. So he may not get the finish early, but I don't think this is going to go the distance. I'm going to take Micallef to get it done.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Vince Morales taking on Colby Thicknesse, the training partner of Alexander Volkanovski. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Give me Colby Thicknesse in this matchup. He's the much busier fighter. I think he'll be a little bit faster than Morales on the feet. And he showed in his last fight that he is tough. He is willing to get in there in exchanges, and he will mix in the takedowns if he needed to against Musasa. And in that fight, he showed he will dance around on the outside. He will be hard to hit. He will move his feet. And I think in this matchup here against Morales, he doesn't have to worry so much about the power coming back his way. Vince Morales is a guy, on a 3-fight skid since returning to the UFC, 35 years old, and he relies heavily on the wrestling. And I do think that Colby Thicknesse is going to have good enough takedown defense here to be able to keep this one on the feet, where he should be a little bit faster, a little bit more athletic, and a little bit quicker to the punch in terms of the boxing and the exchanges on the feet. I think Morales as well has built up a lot of scar tissue. He wears a lot of damage in fights, and I do think that Thicknesse on the feet could definitely capitalize, maybe cut Morales with a couple of right hands or elbows or nasty shots in the clinch. And I just think realistically in this fight that Colby Thicknesse is the much younger, up-and-coming fighter. He should have enough success here to win this one in the eyes of the judges. Morales, very tough, very durable, and I do think they'll hang in there to the judges' scorecards, but give me Colby Thicknesse here to win the unanimous decision, landing the better shots, defending the takedowns. He is also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt himself as well, so I think on the feet he is always live for a submission. I don't think Morales will get submitted because he does have positionally pretty decent wrestling, but give me Colby Thicknesse here to win this one, keeping it on the feet, winning the striking exchanges, and having some success, making it 2 in a row in the UFC. And let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to take Thicknesse to get it done. I think Thicknesse is high energy. He's always moving in and out laterally. He uses his movement pretty much as offense, you know what I mean, and as his defense. He likes to use those stutter steps as he's coming in. It's kind of like a feint to throw off the timing, so you can't really get a hold of is he coming forward, is he not, and get ready to counter him as he's coming in. But I just feel that he's going to come in, he's going to put a pace on Morales, and just like he did against Mousasi. Like Mousasi was just he's not as well-rounded as Morales, honestly. But I do feel that Mousasi, he did hurt Thicknesse a few times throughout that fight, and that's based on just the physical power that he has and the and he's durable, so he was able to hang in there and hurt Thicknesse too. But I just don't feel that Morales has the ability to hurt Thicknesse with any of the shots that he's throwing, and I don't think he poses that threat of the power that is coming back Thicknesse and timing him coming in. Morales, he's well-rounded as well, but there's something about him. He just lacks the ability to get over the hump, to get the job done. Like maybe he just doesn't have, like we were talking, like I just said earlier, that sting that makes people want to be wary of coming forward, or maybe he just doesn't have that strength that he imposes on people because his technique isn't the best. But I don't know what it is with Morales. He hangs in there in fights. He looks good. He looks like a worthy opponent to be there. I just feel that the footwork and the speed, the athleticism, the in and out movement, all the confusion that Thicknesse is going to cause, I think it's going to have Morales playing catch up, pretty much like he does in a lot of his fights, throughout his career here. He just seems to be getting bested just a little bit in all these exchanges. So I am going to take Thicknesse to get it done because I just feel that Morales is well-rounded. I just don't think he has an answer for Thicknesse's movement, his offense, and the pace that he's going to keep. So Thicknesse to get it done.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Jacob Malkoun taking on Gerald Meerschaert. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button and give me Jacob Malkoun in this one. Biggest favorite on the card for a reason. It makes total sense. This is a bad stylistic matchup here for Meerschaert. We know what Meerschaert wants to do at this point. UFC veteran, 38 years old. He wants to look to implement his jiu-jitsu. He wants to get the fight to the ground, but he doesn't have the wrestling to do so. Jacob Malkoun is a guy that is more of a wrestler boxer. He's got very nice, tight, crisp boxing, and he has good wrestling as well that he can fall back on. In this fight, I think if Malkoun keeps this one on the feet with his wrestling, dictates where the fight takes place, he should be the much better striker in terms of the hands, and I think that he should be able to find a knockout here inside of 1 or 2 rounds. Meerschaert on the feet leaves his chin up high. He can be very sort of plodding, very easy, very hittable. And I think, he struggles to get fights to the ground. And I just don't see him being able to get Malkoun into a vulnerable position here on the ground and find the submission. And even if Malkoun does get taken down, I expect him to be able to survive on the ground. His wrestling is solid. And I think that his defensive grappling is going to be enough here to kind of keep Meerschaert at bay. I just don't think it gets there. I think Malkoun knows that he can get the knockout on the feet. I think he sticks to his boxing and ultimately pulls off the knockout victory here. So give me Jacob Malkoun to get this one done in style in front of the Perth crowd. And let's see if Carlos has in this matchup.
This one, I'm going to go with Jacob Malkoun. I think he can be more physical, than Meerschaert, whether it's striking or grappling. I also think Malkoun would be wise to avoid the grappling because that's kind of the only chance that Meerschaert's got to get this done. I do feel that Malkoun can use his takedown defense, stay on the feet, try to strike with Meerschaert. Meerschaert's very slow, very hulking on the feet. And I think Malkoun's movement is a little bit better. It's a little bit more, athletic in comparison to Meerschaert. And I feel that he's going to do a lot more damage on the feet as well. I just feel that why take this to the ground if you don't have to? Because Malkoun does like to mix in some wrestling and get this to the ground and use a little bit of that ground and pound. But just to avoid it, I would say keep it standing. You're going to hurt Meerschaert, and if you don't get it done, get the decision. But it'll be a clean-cut victory if you do that. Meerschaert doesn't have big punching power. His punches aren't very explosive. They're slow. His feet are slow. He's going to be a step behind, so keep this in the realm that's best for you. And even if you get on top, that's the only position he can get is to be on top on the ground and hopefully just be able to rain some shots down on Meerschaert, force him to defend. And if it seems like he's able to get a sweep or change reverse position, get back to your feet, get the separation, and go to work from there. But I feel that the easy game plan would be use your takedown defense, use your speed, use your quickness, get in and out on him, land your heavy shots, get away, create distance, and I think Malkoun will get this one done.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Kevin Christian taking on Junior Tafa. And there's no secret in this one. I think we've got a man that's very chinny in Kevin Christian taking on Junior Tafa that has very poor takedown defense. But one thing we do have to note is in Tafa's last fight against Billy Elkanan, his takedown defense did look like it improved a little bit. He does carry power in the hands and he can put anybody's lights out with that straight right hand. His willingness to exchange in the pocket is something that I think will come in handy here in this fight against Kevin Christian, a guy standing 6'7". He has very much tall man defense in most of his fights. If you look, he backs up on a straight line. He leaves his chin up in the air to be tagged, and I do think that Tafa can capitalize on that, just like Billy Elkanan did in Kevin Christian's UFC debut. We saw Billy Elkanan walk him down. He was getting hit in the low calf by the calf kicks of Kevin Christian, and he has a nice front kick up the middle. But once, Billy Elkanan was able to kind of distinguish those and kind of time his shots, he was able to land a big right hand, dropping Christian, was able to take the back and ultimately find the rear naked choke. And in this one, I think he's going to be able to find the chin here of Christian. I think Tafa's going to be able to come in here, kind of back Christian up with a little bit of reckless abandonment, kind of take away those kicks of the tall 6'7" Kevin Christian, ultimately get him backed up against the fence and tee off on him, find the kill shot here and get a victory that he so badly needs. I don't see Kevin Christian being able to come in here, mixing in grappling and getting a takedown and submitting Junior Tafa. I think he showed enough takedown defense in that last fight here where he's going to be able to defend the takedowns and ultimately keep this one on the feet and land the kill shot. So give me Junior Tafa here to get this one done. Not super confident, but let's see who Carlos has got in this one.
Okay, in this next one, I'm going to take Junior Tafa to get it done. I just feel Tafa can bully Christian and land a bomb in the ring. I think that Tafa, he does swing wild, but is also very aggressive, and that can get Christian going backwards. And he's already tall. His chin's already up in the air. You start taking steps backward. You're trying to see where the strikes are coming, so your head's naturally going to be up. And I think he's, with his awkward movement, I feel that when the more he gets backed up is the more he's just going to leave his chin up in the air. He doesn't bring his guard up. And I think Tafa can land something heavy up top, some type of overhand or hook over the top. And I do feel that just the pressure of Tafa is going to be enough to get it done. Now, he does have to worry about Kevin Christian's ability to, submit on the ground. Now, they say he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I haven't seen so much of his jiu-jitsu that I know that that's that good, but he has pulled off submission victories, and they do look good, they do look technical, but for a big guy being a black belt, you might know the techniques, you just might not know how to incorporate them into your offense, or you might not have the ability to move as slick as some of the little guys. So someone like Junior Tafa could probably bully him on the ground, even if it ends up there, and just ground and pound him out until he gets back to his feet. So I do feel that Tafa's got to be cautious of any submission games, and we know Tafa's definitely not cautious at all, but he's going to throw when he sees the opening, and I think he's going to land. So I'm going to give it to Junior Tafa to get it done.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Robert Bryczek taking on Cam Rowston. And I got to say, I'm a little bit worried for Rowston in this one. If you go back and look at Bryczek's previous performance against Brad Tavares, he looked much better in that fight. Constant forward pressure, very measured pressure, stalking Brad Tavares on the outside of the cage, and had decent boxing. He doesn't throw a ton of kicks, but the boy can land. He really throws everything into a lot of his punches. He has a lot of volume in those power punches as well. And once he gets you hurt and he smells blood, he goes for the finish. And if you look at that last fight, you know, Brad Tavares is known for having a great chin, and he was able to put Brad Tavares out, not something we're used to seeing very often from Brad Tavares. So Robert Bryczek, I think we got to be worried about this guy here at middleweight. Even though he is 35, you got to look at Cam Rowston's skill set. You know, trains at City Kickboxing, has decent kicks on the outside, very nice front chokes, darces, anacondas, guillotines, things like that. But I do worry about his kind of tall man defense that he has at times. It's kind of that, you know, City Kickboxing, chin high up in the air, a very traditional kickboxing style. And I worry about the boxing heavy approach here from Robert Bryczek, that he might be able to just kind of corral the pocket, kind of swarm Rowston, where Rowston kind of doesn't move his head off the center line. And Bryczek's able to land with the boxing. We see it from time and time again with guys who are kickboxers that, you know, Israel Adesanya, for example. They struggle with the boxing defense. You know, they're very good when they're out at space and out at range, and they're able to move and kind of flow. Same here for Rowston. If he's able to dart around on the outside, you know, kind of moving his feet, he'll have a lot of success. But I think that Bryczek here might be able to kind of swarm him, land some big power shots, you know, kind of swarming into the pocket when Rowston backs up on a straight line and land some big shots. But I'm going to say that Rowston gets this one done. I think the kicks from the outside are going to be much better than Brad Tavares did. If you go and look at that Brad Tavares fight, he had success with the 1-2. He had success, you know, really pummeling that lead leg. And I don't necessarily think that Brad Tavares' kickboxing is on the level of Cam Rowston's. Cam Rowston, he has nice kicks, whether that be to the body, whether that be to the lead leg, and he can really butcher that front leg of Bryczek, really taking away some of the power, some of the movement of Bryczek. And I think that Rowston dancing around on the outside while Bryczek is kind of just stalking him, he might be able to kind of set traps and kind of land some shots to counter here as Bryczek comes in. So I am going to say Cam Rowston gets this one done. I don't agree with the +205 price tag here of Robert Bryczek. I think this one's closer to 50-50, but I'm going to say that Cam Rowston gets this one done, kind of playing the matador on the outside. And if Bryczek, for whatever reason, does kind of swarm him, he has those front chokes to kind of worry about, or at least threaten to kind of create some space. But give me Cam Rowston here to get this one done out of City Kickboxing. And let's see who Carlos has got in this matchup.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to have to take Cam Rowston to get it done. Bryczek, he has good patient striking, stalking his opponent. He will jab to get the range. He's very relaxed. You know, stalks his opposition, uses that straight left, right hook combo, or that's just a straight left just to back his opponents up. Rowston, I could see a world where he gets hit, gets dropped. It's happened before with one shot. He gets hurt, gets rocked, doesn't bounce back. Bryczek does have the technique, the power to do so. But I'm going to go with Rowston in this one just because I feel he's got more ways to win. I could see the fact that Bryczek has a wide stance. He's going to rip that calf or the lead leg. He's going to be able to possibly get a single leg, just pick the wide stance. But if he does rip the leg, you know, it's going to force Bryczek to narrow his stance, not have as much leverage on it as he'd like. And I do feel that Rowston just got more ways to win. I could see him taking this to the ground, closing the distance, getting it down, and just forcing Bryczek to work on the ground, whether he's going to use ground and pound or look for a submission. I can just see Rowston being able to control Bryczek. And, you know, in all the exchanges, I would prefer Rowston to stay at length like he normally does. Sometimes he gets a little clumsy. He steps in, but keep everything at range, mostly kicking range, and stay safe. Come in when you're ready to get a takedown. Come in when you're ready to engage. Keep a high guard, and so far he's been able to do that against some opponents, and I don't see this being any different for Bryczek. So I'm going to take Cam Rowston to get it done.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Tuivasa taking on Louie Sutherland. Sutherland stepping in on somewhat short notice here, replacing Sean Sharif. And I think Sutherland here looks at this matchup and thinks that he can play spoiler with his wrestling. That's how I see this fight playing out. I think Louie Sutherland's going to look to come in here and implement his wrestling, but I'm going to say that Tuivasa finds the knockout. Tuivasa, obviously, we know what we're going to get from him. He's going to swing wild. He's going to look for the knockout. Been on a skid at the moment, but he has been losing to the better guys in the heavyweight division, so no shame in some of the losses that he has had, but I think Sutherland here thinks that he can come in and wrestle Tuivasa. And I think Sean Sharif is probably a better matchup for Tuivasa in terms of a guy that we know isn't going to come in and look to take this fight to the ground. Sutherland, though, in the striking is a little bit wild. He leaves himself exposed, and I think that Ty can find the chin here. I think he needs it in a bad way, and I do think that Sutherland is going to look to wrestle, but I think Ty defends those takedowns, implements his striking. He gets a little bit wild, but I think that he can find the knockout here against Sutherland. Don't be surprised if we see Sutherland shooting for legs, ultimately getting the takedown, but I think Tuivasa knows that in this matchup. I think that he can defend the takedowns here against Sutherland, and I just don't think that Sutherland has a whole lot of power and a whole lot in the striking that's going to puzzle Tuivasa on the feet. I think he just needs to be mindful of that wrestling, and he'll find the knockout here, and we know what we're going to get once he finds that knockout. He's getting on top of the cage, and he's doing a shoey in front of the Perth crowd. Give me Tuivasa here to find the knockout. And let's see if Carlos agrees with me or disagrees with me in this one.
In this one, I'm going to take Tuivasa. I feel that he has the experience and the skill to be in there with somebody like Sutherland and technically get this one done. I do feel that, yes, he's been on a 6-fight skid pretty much, and he's been fighting some animals in that 6-fight skid as well, plus some up-and-comers who are just long and quick and have good technical abilities. Now, Sutherland does have good technical abilities. He has good kickboxing, and he has pretty good ability to read and find openings at times, and he'll mix in his clinch work. And I think them being like pretty close to the same height and size and gives Tuivasa a little bit of an edge that if he wants to come forward, he doesn't have to struggle to land these heavy bombs, because he's been fighting some very tall guys and he's been having a hard time getting the range and landing the big shots that he wants to land. And now against somebody like Sutherland, if he does come forward, like Tuivasa's in range to get hurt, but Sutherland's in range to get hurt as well. And I think if you ask me who carries more of the power, I'm going to have to go with Tuivasa. I think that Sutherland has good technical ability, but I don't think he carries that big one-punch power. Like, he's going to have to stay very technical. He's going to have to use every tool that he has, the clinch, kicks to the leg, wrap him up top, when he gets close inside, and try to smother Tuivasa so he doesn't unload on him on the inside and once he closes the distance. And I just don't think Sutherland is prepared for that. I think he's a tough kid. I think he can take a couple of good shots, but once he takes one or two good shots and he starts to turn away a little bit like he did in his last fight, I just feel that Tuivasa is going to turn it up. And if you ask me, I think Tuivasa probably hits harder than Pericic that Sutherland fought in the last fight. Maybe not harder, but maybe he's a little bit more accurate, whereas Pericic was a little bit more, I'm going to make sure I find you, so he's trying to be accurate and not ripping into those shots. And I think that's going to be the difference, is as soon as Tuivasa lands, I think he's going to hurt Sutherland and get him out of there. So I'm going to take Tuivasa to get it done.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Shamil Gaziev taking on Brando Pericic. And I'm pretty high on this guy, Pericic. He's a nice addition to the heavyweight division here in the UFC. And I'm pretty confident in him in this matchup against Gaziev. I think if you look at this on paper, Gaziev is far too flat-footed. He doesn't rely on his wrestling enough, and I think that even though he does have one-shot power as a big guy, I just think that in terms of the striking here, Brando Pericic is going to be much more dynamic, much faster. He has nice kicks to the body as well that he can really wear on the gas tank of Gaziev. And I just think that Gaziev is going to be too slow in this matchup. I think Pericic's speed is going to be too much for Gaziev. I think he might fall back on the wrestling, but because Pericic does train over at City Kickboxing, they're renowned for their good takedown defense, especially against the cage. We saw that in his last fight. He was able to defend the takedowns of Louie Sutherland, keep that one on the feet, and ultimately find the knockout. I think he trusts in his hands. He's in his physical prime at 31 years old, 6'5" as well. the guy's a problem, and I really do think that Shamil Gaziev is going to have difficulty here against Brando Pericic. I don't really see a way that Gaziev is going to be able to really deal with the kickboxing and the kicks of Pericic. I don't see how he's going to be able to handle the speed differential in these two in this matchup, and I think that he's not going to be able to fall back on his wrestling because of the takedown defense of Pericic. And I do think the more that Gaziev decides to wrestle, I think it's going to wear on the gas tank, which is one of his kryptonites that we've seen in his previous fights. So give me Brando Pericic here to get this one done. I feel confident in him this week. I think he should be a bigger favorite in this matchup, and I think that he's really going to make a name for himself and get a well-known name inside the UFC on his resume here in Shamil Gaziev. So give me Brando Pericic. I think he finds the knockout. We just saw Gaziev just get knocked out in his last fight against Waldo Cortez Acosta, and it might be back-to-back knockout losses here for Shamil Gaziev. So give me Brando Pericic here to get this one done with the striking, defend the takedowns, and ultimately find the chin of Gaziev. Let's see if Carlos agrees with me in this one.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to take Pericic to get it done. I feel Gaziev, he has decent boxing, and, he's a heavy puncher, and he's got pretty good hand speed, for a big guy. And it's not really something you'd expect, but his feet aren't that quick. And after round one, whether he uses wrestling or he just incorporates his boxing and his movement defensively, I just feel that, he slows down considerably, like very noticeably during the second round and partway to the end of the first. But even though he does slow down and his mouth is open and he's sucking wind, he's still dangerous. He's still got those heavy shots. He throws them long, and he whips everything behind it. So somebody like Pericic, he's got to be worried about that. But what Pericic is going to do that's going to make him dangerous is he's got very good technique. His defense does look pretty good. He's got good cardio, and he does stay in your face, and he picks up the pace of the fight. And what he can do is he can stay safe, keep his guard up, use his movement, and force Gaziev to, throw some shots that he doesn't want to, and get him in a clinch, and get some blood in those arms, and get that heart rate up. And, when that happens, you got to, it's going to be up to Pericic to figure out, when am I going to pick up the pace? When am I? And for the most part, he's been pretty good. He stays long with his strikes. He comes into the clinch. He'll put his weight on you. He'll pull down on your head. He'll throw some uppercuts. And, he's the type of guy that once he knows he's got a little bit of an advantage on you, he's going to stay busy. And I feel that he's going to find that point in the fight where Gaziev is going to be a little fatigued. So I am going to take Pericic to get it done. I think he'll see the opportunity and he'll seize it. So Pericic, let's go.
And next up at UFC Perth, we've got Tim Elliott taking on Steve Erceg. Moving down to 125, Steve Erceg. Let's see how this one goes. Obviously, Steve Erceg, former 135er, moving down here to 125. It'll be interesting to see how the weight cut goes for Steve Erceg. He is a reasonably big 135er, so interested to see what the gas tank looks like and how he's going to do here at this new division. But let's talk a little bit about Erceg. I think he struggles with the speed at bantamweight, which is kind of crazy for him to now be moving down here, taking on a guy like Tim Elliott. I do think he'll take shots much better here at 125. I think that he's going to be much bigger, much stronger in a lot of these matchups if he does decide to stay at 125. And in this particular matchup, I do think that Tim Elliott doesn't hold enough in terms of the respect in the hands to be able to kind of back Steve Erceg up. I do think in this matchup here, Tim Elliott is a guy that, at 39 years old, coming off of his victory over Kai Asakura, he's going to be riding, a lot of confidence, but I don't think that he's going to have that same success here against Steve Erceg. Erceg is going to be able to walk him down, not necessarily with reckless abandonment, but with measured pressure. And I think he doesn't have to worry about the takedowns of Tim Elliott. He knows that he can defend those takedowns. He knows his wrestling is going to be good enough. And he knows in this matchup that he can take shots from much bigger opponents in the 135 division. And I think if you look at Tim Elliott, he's reliant heavily upon kind of that funky style. He almost has that drunken monkey style, that almost Bobby Green-esque, hands down, kind of throwing faint shovel uppercuts and spinning, and this weird, very weird kind of drunk style of fighting. It obviously worked for him against Kai Asakura when he was able to get the takedowns and kind of time those takedowns off of the weird kind of movements that he had in that fight that kind of threw off the timing of Kai Asakura, enabling to get those level changes. But I don't think that same style is going to work here against Erceg. I think Erceg's a guy that stays very fundamental. He knows he has good takedown defense. If he wants to mix in some grappling of his own, I think that he can, as as the bigger guy. I don't think he's going to have too much trouble taking down Tim Elliott. He just has to be mindful of that guillotine. And I think on the feet, him staying fundamentally sound, especially in the boxing with that measured pressure, he's going to be able to land cleaner shots on Tim Elliott. I think he's just going to be kind of on his P's and Q's when it comes to the striking. And if he has success in the striking, I could see him even mixing in some level changes just to throw off the rhythm here of Tim Elliott. It should be a Steve Erceg W, in my opinion. Unanimous decision, maybe a second or third round TKO. I could see him ripping to the body and then kind of coming upstairs with Elliott kind of, shelling up against the fence here. I just don't see a way that Elliott's going to be able to mix in takedowns. He's going to be much smaller than Steve Erceg in there. Erceg knows that he can take a shot from bigger guys. So give me Steve Erceg here to get this one done. Get in the win column here in this new division. As long as his cardio holds up and the weight cut isn't too bad for him, I think he'll be all right here against Tim, the drunken monkey Elliott. Funky style, very entertaining, but I don't think he'll pull it off in this one. Give me Steve Erceg. Let's see who Carlos has got in this one.
Okay, in this one, I am going to take Steve Erceg to get it done. I like Elliott. I like watching him fight over the years. I like his high energy. And, at 39, the cardio still appears to be there for him, but I just feel Erceg can match Elliott's abilities on the ground and his cardio and his wrestling. He can stuff the takedowns. And if he does that, then he's going to be able to expose the openings on the feet with Elliott, where Elliott's competent on the feet, but he does use his movement as defense, but he lacks the fundamentals, and he lacks power to back off his opponent, and he lacks the skill to close the distance and actually be effective in his striking. And it shows in his record. He doesn't have a ton of finishes by TKO or KO, but this fight might just be one in the scrambles and in the clinch, and even that, I feel Erceg can probably beat him to the best spot when they scramble or when they're in the clinch. I do feel that Erceg is looking to be offensive with the striking, whereas Elliott's looking to be offensive with takedowns and ground control. And I feel that Erceg does find a way to have separation with strikes, whether he keeps them long and starts to attack. Yeah, he uses all his weapons, so you don't really know what's coming at you, but he is a little heavier on the boxing, and I feel that that's going to be enough to keep someone like Elliott at bay, or far enough out that when he shoots, Erceg will be able to see it, time a sprawl, down block, do anything he can do to keep Elliott off of him, and same thing, exploit the openings from the top. So I've got Erceg to get this one done.
And that brings us to the co-main event here for UFC Perth. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down Beneil Dariush taking on Quillan Salkilld. Finally, Salkilld is getting a bigger name here on his resume. Dariush obviously in the rankings, but we got to say, I think that chin is fading him. 6 of his 7 losses have all come via knockout. Obviously, Beneil Dariush, let's start with him. He has decent boxing, nice 1-2, but I think that he does lack a little bit in the speed department here, especially in this matchup against Quillan Salkilld. And I do not trust his chin. And when you look at his resume, he does have good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The guy can really grapple if the fight gets to the ground. Very credentialed in terms of his black belt. And I do think if this fight hits the mat that Beneil Dariush will be live for a submission. But I think Quillan Salkilld has shown that in his wrestling that he does have enough grappling to be able to stay defensively sound here against Beneil Dariush. But I don't think it gets there. I think Quillan Salkilld is going to be too dynamic on the feet. Great head kicks. Very nice 1-2 down the pipe. He has very nice shots on the feet that I think that he can catch Beneil Dariush with. And because of that knockout power, you've got to go with Quillan Salkilld in this matchup. I just do not trust the chin of Beneil Dariush at this point in his career. 10 years his senior as well. And I think he's just over the hill at this point. I hate to say it, I do like Beneil Dariush. He has crisp boxing and nice power in the hands, and he can set up a shot. But I just think that Quillan Salkilld is going to be too fast for him, too youthful, too exuberant, slight height and reach advantage for him as well. And I think the kicks here of Quillan Salkilld, he's got to be careful. He did find that knockout, victory over Nasrat Haqparast, but throwing blind kicks against Dariush might get, in a world of trouble. He might be able to catch those kicks and take him down and implement his jiu-jitsu, where I think Dariush will have the advantage. Everywhere else, I think Quillan Salkilld is going to be better here, but I don't think it gets there. I think Quillan Salkilld finds the knockout on the feet. I think he makes it 8 losses here for Beneil Dariush. 7 come by way of knockout, and I think we see another highlight reel knockout here for Quillan Salkilld at UFC Perth in this co-main event. And let's see if Carlos thinks Quillan Salkilld is going to get the knockout.
Okay, in this one, I'm going to take Salkilld to get it done. I think both guys could be dangerous on the feet. I think Dariush, he's hurt guys with punches in the striking exchanges, and I feel that Salkilld has done the same thing. But Salkild's pretty much hurt everybody like with strikes. Like he can mix in kicks, his kicks and knees and punches, elbows, anything that he has to. Whereas Dariush tends to be a little bit more boxing heavy and trying to get the fight to the ground. And if this fight does get to the ground, I just feel that although Dariush, I feel, is probably a little bit more skilled and definitely more experienced, I feel that Salkilld is on the come up and his skills are getting better. He's got good positioning on the ground. He's got good transitions into submissions. He's got very good defense, takedown defense as well. So I just feel that everything that Salkilld has, Dariush didn't necessarily have that stand-up ability, but I think that Salkilld just has the drive, the hunger, and he has the skill. And I think he just has more skill than Dariush. And as Dariush gets older and he's been in some wars, I do feel that he's starting to slow down. Probably a couple fights ago he started slowing down. And now you're going to fight somebody like Salkilld who's pretty measured on the feet. He doesn't take crazy chances. He looks for the openings, and he's been finding them. He's been exploiting them. So I just feel Dariush is going to give him that opening, and Salkild's going to take advantage of it. He's going to get this one done.
And that brings us to the main event here for UFC Perth. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button. And what a banger we have here at UFC Perth. I was saying to Carlos that I haven't been excited about too many matchups in this year's UFC card so far, and this is one that really piqued my interest. We've got Jack Della Maddalena taking on Carlos Prates, two strikers. We don't have to be worried too much about the grappling, in my opinion, in this one. If anybody's going to shoot a takedown, it'll be Della Maddalena, but I think this one mostly plays out on the feet. This is one for the fans. And give me Jack Della Maddalena here. I think if you go back and look at Carlos Prates, obviously getting the knockout victory over Leon Edwards was impressive. We saw him get taken down on control in that fight. We saw Leon Edwards mixing in the grappling, but ultimately it was the power of Prates, that straight right that was able to find the knockout. And I think that Prates is very dangerous on the feet. But one thing I will say about Prates is he can be very low volume at times. He is a guy that will look for his openings. He'll look to go to the body with the knee. We saw him knock out Chuck Buffalo with that nice, shot to the body and ultimately finishing that fight. I just think in this particular matchup, you go back and look at Della Maddalena, his losses have only come to Islam Makhachev. He's been on an 18-fight win streak since then. He did lose his first two professional bouts, but an 18-fight win streak up until losing to the current champion in Islam Makhachev. And who doesn't lose to Islam Makhachev? So looking at this matchup, I give the slight edge to Della Maddalena. He's a guy in terms of the boxing that I think he's got very crisp combinations. He attacks the low calf kick. He can be busier on the feet. He'll throw in combination. And I think if you go and look at, Prates' performances, even if you look at the Trevin Giles fight, he was losing that fight until he was winning it. Until he got that knockout, Giles had more volume than him. He had a nice stiff jab that he was, hitting Prates with. And Prates is a guy that, even if you go and look at the Ian Gary fight, he's a guy that doesn't throw a ton of volume. And he doesn't trust, I think, that his ability to be able to put up a ton of volume, and he relies a lot on his power. And I think Jack Della Maddalena, in terms of the defense in the striking, can definitely use his defensive abilities here to be able to slip the big shots of Prates and look to counter. He can wear on the gas tank by slipping and ripping to the body. And we don't have to worry about the takedowns here for Maddalena. We know that Prates isn't going to come in here and shoot for the legs. So not having to worry about the takedowns for Jack Della Maddalena is also going to be a big factor. We saw Gilbert Burns have to try to wrestle him. We saw other people look to take down Jack Della Maddalena. Basil Hofez, Islam Makhachev, Gilbert Burns. That's where people have had success against Jack. But on the feet, people struggle. He has power. He has volume. He does a good job of being able to slip shots and counter. And I just think the boxing and the defensive boxing here is going to be on the side of Jack Della Maddalena. I give the slight edge in kicks to Prates, but the volume's not there for me. And I do think that Jack Della Maddalena here is being very heavily underestimated in this main event. You got to remember as well, if this one's close and it comes down to moments, we're going to have Jack Della Maddalena being the guy that's throwing more. He's going to be the one that's stalking Prates. He's going to be the one that's going to be giving the judges more to score. And I could see Prates here, kind of struggling to get going, especially early in the fight. He's a little bit of a slow starter, and I think that Jack can really take over. I think that would give him confidence here in front of his home crowd, and I could see him either, getting a late finish or maybe even just winning a unanimous decision here where he's the much busier fighter, and the judges are going to score his bigger moments and his output on the feet. Not having to worry about the takedowns in this fight for both guys, I think, is a blessing, and it's a great main event. So give me Jack Della Maddalena here to be the busier guy, winning this one by unanimous decision, and hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully he finds a knockout, but I think the volume is going to be on the side of Jack enough to win in the judges' scorecards. Let's see if Carlos has got in this main event.
In this one, I'm going to go with Carlos Prates to get it done. This is another one of those fights where JDM will need to fight like a perfect fight pretty much. And Prates, he only needs to land one, maybe two, and maybe one or two each round just to try to get it done, for the damage aspect of it. And he could probably steal those rounds if he can hurt JDM visibly. If JDM's got some wrestling, it would be good to mix it in early just so that Prates has something to think about, whether the strike is coming, whether he's changing levels to, go to the body or go for the takedown, get into the hips, something to make Prates have to hesitate to at least try to worry about a takedown. The other thing is, because I think that Maddalena's got to fight a perfect fight. In the UFC so far, we don't know how he's going to react when he gets hit by somebody like Carlos Prates because he's been defensively pretty good. He doesn't take big shots. He rolls with punches very nicely. He slips to the outside of them. And he's got good movement where he can just take those small steps, change angles, that three-quarter turn, and just get out of the way of certain strikes. So even if JDM gets hit, you have no idea how he's going to come back. Is he going to be resilient, or is it going to be one and done? And I don't feel it's going to be one and done, but I do feel that if Prates lands clean and maybe in succession, he can get JDM out of there. I also feel that Prates has very good economy of strikes, and he's very accurate when he's ready to throw. So he can lose some rounds that way, whereas Jack Della Maddalena, he likes to throw in combination and could be stealing all those rounds. So like me and Aaron had discussed, before I recorded this, was Prates could be one of those fighters where he's losing until he's winning. So that's something else to think about. JDM, he's very accurate as well. He has solid punching power. He throws in good combination. But to do that, even though he has good tilts and he gets his head out of the way of damage and he changes angles, just to be able to stand in front of Prates, if you don't take the proper angle, if Prates decides to throw in combination, that could be a problem because that's something that Maddalena is not used to, and he can get caught with something. So there's too many reasons for Jack Della Maddalena to win, but Carlos Prates just needs one to get this done. And that's what I'm thinking, and even if he hits him with a pinky punch, he can hurt him, you know what I mean? And I just feel that JDM doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Besides his grappling in the fight against Islam, that's pretty much has been his mistake. And a lot of his fights, Basil Hafez, he's had issues with the takedowns and getting back up. And then all of a sudden he has to get back to his feet and go to work. And he's been able to get it done so far, except for against Islam Micallef. But he's not going to have to worry about that with Prates. So he's going to be in his zone. He's going to be loose. He's going to be ready. But what's it going to be like when Prates actually lands? When Prates feels like he needs a sense of urgency to get this done, and JDM is standing right in front of him. And when he lands, how bad is it going to be? Is it going to be enough to put him out? Does he have that Alex Pereira power where he's going to put you out as long as he's ready to throw and you're in front of him and he lands? And that's where the threat is for me. I think that JDM can chip away at him and, he can get the decision, but I feel that Prates, it's the same thing. He could be losing until he's winning, and that winning can come in a flash. So I'm going to take Prates for that one reason. And I feel that can happen. I feel like I should lean more towards Maddalena because that's the way he's fought all this time, and nothing's going to change it. But I do feel Prates does have the equalizer at 170, and if he lands, he can get it done. So I'm going to take Prates here to get it done.
And there you have it, guys. UFC Perth in the books. Della Maddalena taking on Prates. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button and check out some of our other content on the channel. We've got the dog of the week, my favorite betting underdog for this UFC Perth card. We've got full card betting guides. We've got PFL Sioux Falls this week as well. Full of MMA content here on the channel. Check out some of our other videos, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.